Hello, everybody. My name is Diana, and this is my Trailblazers of the Universe podcast. Some of you might know me from my Trailblazers of the Universe YouTube channel, where I help you fearlessly and unapologetically live your best, most authentic life, and I help you break through any barriers and transcend any limitations you may have. But on this podcast, we're going to be focused more on spirituality, self-improvement, and emotional healing. So today I have a special guest and friend, Brittany Smith. We're gonna be talking more about coming back to yourself. She has experience with hypnosis. She hosts transformational events, breath work, retreats, adventures, sisterhood, a lot of different things. Before I get started, I really want to shine a spotlight on people that are doing good things on the planet. I think we give a lot of attention to people that aren't. And so when I see someone that's like, I call a trailblazer and someone that really wants to help heal and, raise the frequency vibration of the planet, I really am inspired because we need more people like that. So Brittany, if you could introduce yourself and what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm super honored to be here. I love that I am a trailblazer. So with that being said, my name's Brittany Smith. I'm a rapid transformational therapist practitioner. I also am a breathwork facilitator, and I'm in the process of getting certified in somatics as well. I do host retreats. We just recently finished a women's retreat we called Love Thyself, and it was a weekend experience in North Carolina on the Outer Banks, and we just delved in. We did some internal work, but it was so gentle and beautiful. And we got to spend time out on the beach and together in community, and these events, just in general, not just ours, but if you get the opportunity to experience some sort of event ever in your life, I would say go for it, because they really are life-changing in so many ways. And yeah, that's who I am and what I do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really feel called to do more. I think live events are very powerful, because I think in this digital world, we can listen to a video, we can, listen to a podcast, but, I think the in-person events, really helps us connect with others that are on the same mission. And, everyone has a unique perspective to offer in whether it's on healing and improving yourself, or it's just good to feel connected. I think in this world, a lot of people isolate now with what's going on the planet, and I think it's really good that we can come together and do those kind of things. So what got you into coaching? I remember the rapid transformational therapy. I remember I was interested in that too. Can you go more into that part? I'm very interested in that. So that's more like reprogramming your subconscious, but it's a different technique, right, than normal kind of hypnosis.
Absolutely. Yeah. So rapid transformational therapy actually includes multiple modalities. I studied under Marissa Peer in 2020, and what got me kind of interested in RTT, is what we call it, was I was on my own journey, right? And we can talk about that more down the line. I actually had a huge epiphany around that last weekend, so I'd love to share.
Yeah.
But specifically RTT, I had a heel spur, and I was a dance teacher. I was a volleyball coach.
Wow.
I coached travel ball and high school volleyball. And I was always on my feet. I was a teacher at high school level. So being on my foot and having this heel spur was super painful. And I did everything I could possibly think of. I went to every doctor under the sun, and their only conclusion was, well, we can do surgery, but it might not take. It might come right back. And so I started doing deeper research. I had been really interested in Marissa Peer's stuff since 2016. And when they said that, I was like, no, that's because it's not hitting the root. And I need to hit the root of what this hilter is. And so I reached out to another transformational therapist and did an RTT session with them on my foot. And within 5 days after that session, the hill spur was completely gone. This was in 2019, 2019, and it has not come back.
Wow.
So I was like, I love this and I want my life to be about this and I want to be able to bring this to other people. So the end of 2019 was when I decided I'm going to get certified. And so that's what I did. Now, rapid transformational therapy in itself is, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's multiple modalities all wrapped into one. So, for example, if you were to go through a session, what that would look like is we would have an intake call. I would ask you a bunch of questions to get really clear on what it is we're working on. Like for me, my first session was the hill spur. I knew that's what I wanted gone. So when I went to my intake call, it was, I don't know why, but it's painful. I can barely even walk. Like I was literally to the point where I was crippled.
Oh, wow.
And it was not, as somebody who's a mover and a mover and a groover,
Yeah.
right? Um, so what an actual session looks like is an intake call, and then like a couple days later after that, once I've had a chance to go through and decide, what is it that we're really working on here, and I craft some questions for them. And then during the actual session, I'll say, hey, how does this feel? Let's work on, let's think. My question, for example, with my foot could have been something like, when was the very first time that Brittany experienced pain on her right heel? Right? So I'm hypnotizing you, taking you back. So then now we're using regression therapy, taking you back to that very first time. I tell you that it's like on a computer screen or a TV screen. It's like you're watching it from an outside perspective. So you're not reliving the occurrence or the trauma, right? You're seeing it like it's on a TV screen. And then you're able to look at it and tell me everything about that experience. I can open your ears, I can open your eyes because you're under hypnosis and you're in a memory. So I can really tap into all those different areas, and ask you. My job is to be the investigator. So I ask every question that comes to my mind while I'm listening to you talk about this experience. And then once we get to where it's like, okay, is there anything else important for you to share with me? And you tell me no, then I say, all right, we're going to do this at least 2 more times.
Yeah.
And I take you back to another memory with a different question that pertains to what we just talked about, what you learned during that experience, so to speak. And it's really cool because we don't take away your ability to remember what we discussed during these sessions. So even though you're under hypnosis, when you come out, you still have the ability to totally recall what we talked about. And then once you go through the regression part, then we do, typically, there's so many different things. There's like 16 to 20 different ways I can upgrade you, so to speak. But the key is to reframe the thought process to get you to that point of understanding so that you know what caused that specific feeling of I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy, or, I'm unlovable, or whatever that might be. And then once you know that, we can move into what's called the reframe or the upgrade. And that's where for like 10 to 15 minutes, I just breathe life into you. So I'm affirming everything that you think you're not, and you're just relaxed and sitting there and listening and taking it all in. But RTT in general is like, it's hypnosis. So hypnotherapy, essentially, regression therapy, NLP, linguistic programming, psychotherapy, affirmations, and I'm missing one, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's a good mix.
It's not
yeah.
running right now. So it's a really amazing tool, and I'm so excited that I have it and use it regularly now.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I think just the way, I mean, where do the limiting beliefs come from? I think from society's programming, from maybe when we were a kid, and just the way we're thinking. And it just, we have the ability to heal ourselves through what we believe, you know? And I think in that state, a lot of people aren't able to do it in a regular state, right? Because your conscious mind is going to, or your subconscious is going to like reject it. So that's kind of hacking into the subconscious, getting your brain in what is that, a theta state, and then so it can receive, and you're more receptive to that kind. Because if I listen to affirmations right now, you know, I've done a lot of experiments with hypnosis and affirmations and things like that, and I have one that I would listen to like when I was awake, and it's cool, it sounds empowering, but you know, sometimes you still reject it on some level. So I had one where I was listening to him when I would sleep, and I would wake up. I did this for like a month, and I felt great, you know, because my brain was in that state. But I think that's good that you can get people in that state, and also to be the observer of whatever event happened, because sometimes we don't want to go back to that state in our normal state because it could be traumatic or very painful. So I think it's cool that you can like observe it from like a different like from farther away. You're not so entrenched in it, you know. And I think that's really cool that we can use that to heal, like as a healing tool. Yeah.
Absolutely. We also, once the session is complete, I take that part where I just breathe life into you the whole time, you know, 10, 15 minutes, and I turn that into a recording for you. So now you have your own personal meditation that's, you know, geared specifically towards what you need, like to reframe on the inside. I guess need's not the best, what you could reframe on the inside. And so we always say, listen, you know, I send it out the very next morning. Listen to this when you first wake up or when you're going to bed every day for 30 days. And then I check in with them, you know, on like day 6, on day 10, on day 15 to make sure to see how that listening to that recording is going, because, you know, we learn everything through repetition.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, it's needed, because you can't just listen to it one time and then that's it, you know. And especially if it's a limiting belief that you've had since you were younger, you know, the older you are, the more unprogramming of your subconscious you have to do in reprogramming. So I think a lot of people get frustrated, and then they'll have a trigger come up, and then it's like a test. Are you gonna be that version or not? And that's a big thing with me, as I've overcome like addiction and things like that. It was like, now it's faced in front of you again after you've done all this work, and it just like, the healing doesn't always stop, the evolving doesn't stop. You're always at a different level. I say new levels, new devils, even sometimes too. So I think just being gentle with yourself, and I know you're big into like the self-love and the confidence, and sometimes it's good to even hear someone else outside of you breathing. I like what you said about breathing life into you, like telling you positive things, because we're in a world where you probably don't hear that a lot. You might have grown up in a, like, maybe your childhood wasn't like that, maybe your parents weren't like that, and it's not always their fault. Sometimes they weren't raised like that either, and maybe their parents did that. So that's a big part of like breaking these, like, I don't want to say generational curses, but like the trauma, just like, you know, healing your whole bloodline, you know, and then we can pass that down to the next generation. But so when people come to you for rapid transformational therapy, or even just coaching in general, what's the main reason why people come to you? Or like, what's the main thing that you think people struggle with that's like blocking them from getting to their next level?
So I mean, you know, I was kind of raised by Marissa Peer, and my actual, when I first even jumped into this whole world, it was Lisa Nichols was the one who lit me up.
She was in The Secret, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and both of their kind of platforms at the time were, you are enough. And, you know, we've studied so much, everything goes back to the root of like not feeling good enough, not feeling capable enough, not feeling worthy enough. And what causes that? It's all programming, and it's nobody's fault, because as you said a minute ago, it's generational.
Yeah.
And when we healing that, then it heals the whole bloodline, and it's such a beautiful thing. So I would say, you know, when people come to me, it's because they see my stuff, and they're inspired by like the fact that, well, you know, my story was, I went from like really hating on myself consistently and having this really bad experience in my relationship and whatnot, to like thriving. and being secure in who I am and able to be authentic even in some really difficult situations. And I try to share that with my audience. And when they see that, they'll reach out oftentimes and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then I just openly share with them. We have an open conversation, and um, that's it. Like, when it comes to this stuff, there's no selling to me, because it's the fact that it's possible, and to know that you can do it on your own, it sells
It
itself.
speaks for itself. Yeah, I'm like, it's kind of like embodying that. I deal with the same thing too. Sometimes you want to feel like you're selling something. You're just being your authentic self, and the people that resonate are gonna be drawn to you. The people you're meant to help. That's how I kind of look at it too. And it kind of goes back into the topic, back to self. So a lot of people are afraid to be authentic, or afraid to think differently, and they think what they have to say or what they feel isn't important, and that's all also part of the programming. So what would you say to people who are having trouble being authentic, like being comfortable in their own skin? And this could be due to trauma. There could be a lot of different factors, but what overall advice would you say for someone who's like really having trouble being authentic? Maybe they have all these creative ideas. They have an idea what they want to do for their purpose, but like they're just kind of scared to put themselves out there and to like shine and everything.
So is this person aware yet that they aren't being authentic? Or are they?
I guess it could go either way.
So
They don't feel authentic. Maybe they're just afraid to express it.
They know something's off and they want it to be different, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. My husband, he tickles me because he tells me oftentimes, he's like, "Brittany, you red pill people." And I'm like, well, sometimes maybe that's what they need.
Yeah.
So, I usually, if they're struggling with authenticity and they are yet to open up about it, I read people pretty well, and I get really curious when I'm with them. So ultimately, I don't have a definitive answer, because it would really depend on kind of what they were saying and how they were being, as to what way I would kind of guide the conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I did have someone message me a while back. I was raised in a purely Southern Baptist home. Okay, so good little schoolgirl, right? And I had some wild weekends in high school and college, but I had to keep those quiet, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I also, once I got out of college, I became a school teacher in a really small town where, I was raised in this Southern Baptist community. And so it was all about facade and looking a certain way and being who everybody thought I needed to be. And I went to many events. All right. I started, like I said, with Lisa Nichols. I did the Marissa Peer stuff. And then one day, out of the blue, I found I had already planned a trip to Sedona, Arizona. And then it just so happens on Facebook, I happened to find this event. I don't even know how I found it. A friend of mine posted some pictures of a house, and I was like, "Oh, this house is really dope." And she was like, "Cool, I'm going to a retreat there next, like in July. Do you want to go?" And I was like, thinking retreat, like sitting by the pool, sipping on some Kool-Aid, chilling for the weekend, like a retreat, like a spa is what I was thinking. Because at that time I was doing motivational and inspirational and transformational events. I had not been to a retreat space yet. So I get there, and it was like a total rebirthing experience.
Oh, wow.
Because it was all shadow work and like in the deepest freaking form. Well, Brittany is a go-getter. Like, I go big or I go home, and I wasn't going home because I was excited to be in Sedona. So I stuck it out.
Oh, I love that. I've always wanted to visit there.
Yes. And so I came home from that experience. I did all this shadow work this week that I was there, and I came home a totally different person than what I went there as. And people noticed almost out of the gate, because the first thing I did was get on my Facebook and say, "Hey, y'all, I can say fuck now." And people were messaging me like, what happened to you? And I'm like, I did the work necessary to peel back some of the walls that I was hiding behind. And so oftentimes when I'm talking to somebody and they are struggling with authenticity, I'll go right for the gut, I'll be like, so that's programming. And they'll be like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, everything we experience in life is a program.
Yep.
So what you said, that's a pattern you're going to run your whole life
Hmm.
if you don't learn how or figure out how to get out from behind it.
Hmm.
And sometimes that scares the crap out of people. And sometimes it piques their interest. And, that's all about the attracting the people who are for me. But I don't sugarcoat with people anymore. I just tell them what I'm experiencing, and then they get to choose whether they want to hear what I have to say or not.
Yeah. I think shadow work is such a big, important part of healing, and especially people that are more spiritually inclined like us. A lot of people want to focus on the love and the light, but man, the shadow is where the work is at. And that's how I healed from addictions and stuff, is from sitting with my emotions, raw, whatever issues, like sitting. I mean, I have more of kind of a more intense way of the way I was doing it. I went to a holistic rehab and that's how I healed, but all the stuff was removed, all the things I used to numb myself or to distract myself. I just sitting with the raw emotions and feeling it, and facing your fears and insecurities head on. But that's a lot of work for a lot of people, and especially if you have some heavy trauma, that's sometimes you need guidance on that. It's not something I think everybody should do alone. I mean, some people can. I was able to, but it can be a lot. Some people can have like an existential crisis. They have a dark night of the soul, but it's just finding back to self. It's just like basically shedding away all these layers of who you aren't. A part of the awakening, you just finding your purpose, being authentic, is like all this was like programming that wasn't necessarily ours. Like we didn't choose it, and we just believed it and we felt it, and then that's our experience. So it's really cool that we can take our power back, and I think shadow work's a very good way to do that. And what would you say for people that are struggling to find their purpose right now? Because that kind of connects back into the authenticity and the shadow work and stuff. A lot of people aren't living their purpose. Either they're afraid to be authentic, or the way our society is, we're working like a regular job, and our purpose, it takes work to do that and maybe make a living from that. Or I think people focus too much on that. And some people just don't want to do the inner work, or they have insecurities or fears of being seen, So what advice do you have to someone that's trying to find their purpose in this crazy world?
So again, that would be something I'm a really curious person when it comes to people. So if they're struggling with their purpose, the first thing I would say, and I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but it's Marissa Peer, this is my training, between the ages of 7 and 14, what did you love to do?
Mm.
And they go, well, I don't remember. And I'm like, yeah, you do. What'd you love to do? And, I might get something like, well, I played. Okay, what'd you play with? Well, I played video games, or I played with Barbie dolls, or, I loved to draw. Oh, well, there's something I can work with. I can work with all three of those things. You played video games. What was it about the video games that you enjoyed?
Yeah.
And then we just break that down and go through it, right? Every element of it. And it's like, you loved Barbie dolls. What was fascinating to you about Barbie dolls as a child? Well, I really loved them talking and like playing, and they would go places together, or and maybe somebody made clothes for their Barbie dolls, things like that. Well, then why aren't you doing something like that today?
Mm.
What do you Well, if you loved communicating with people, are you in a job right now, or in an extracurricular experience where you're actively communicating with people? Well, no, I'm at a cubicle and I do data work all day long. Well, that's why you're miserable.
Yep.
Get some communication going, you know? If you loved like the Barbie doll thing, the making the clothes. Well, do you know how easy it is today to start an online business where you can create clothes and sell them and you don't even ever have to touch them?
Yeah.
And like video games. People are making gazillions of dollars just playing video games online right now, streaming.
Yep.
You know, what are you doing in the evening times when you get home? It's like it's taken the smallest little inkling of what you really loved as a kid and figuring out what is it about that that I truly enjoyed and how can I transpire that into the life that I'm living today.
Yeah.
And once you figure that out, then you can really jump into your purpose or your passion or what it is you feel you're here for. But again, you have people who are afraid. They don't want to put the money down to pursue something. So then, okay, well, then let's do it where you're working. And this is just something you do on the weekends for fun.
Hmm.
And if you're getting a little bit of it, if it's what lights you up, it's going to change your whole outlook on life moving forward if you're actively doing it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have lost their spark, and I think, yeah, it goes into the inner child healing. I get a lot into that, but a lot of it's just simple. It's just bringing it back to the basics, like what brings you joy, and like it's not caring about other people's opinions of how that might look as you're an adult, and that's, I think, where people get stuck on. People care too much about what people think, or it's just a program, and yeah, it's about like finding your spark, what brings you joy, and it doesn't matter what it is. And sometimes if you need to keep it to yourself, if it's something you don't feel like comfortable sharing, you just do it on your own thing. It's about connecting back to yourself too. That's why it's important to have like alone time to really find out what you want to do, you know, your passions, like what brings you to life, and that can change, you know, and it's okay to change your passions. It's okay to even change your purpose. You could have something in mind, like me, I'm doing content creation, but I don't know what's going to happen in a few years. I could, you know, I probably will still be doing that, but I might expand, and it could help you branch out into like other things, you know, and then you connect with people that are on the same frequency, and yeah, so it's
For
pretty
sure.
cool.
That's the beauty of doing the work too,
Yeah.
because as you pull those layers back, you uncover new purposes and new passions that you didn't even know existed because it was hidden within.
Yeah.
And when you know, peel that back and increase your frequency, that opens you up to meet those new people that share that the like-minded, you know, experiences with you. And it's just it's hard. It can be a really hard thing to say, okay, I realize it's time for change. But when you do, there's no going back because once you see it, you can't unsee it again.
And you kind of flow with it, and then once you start to do that, and you know, I think some people, obviously your subconscious wants to keep you safe, right? So it's going to say, oh, that's scary. Anything outside your comfort zone is going to be like, oh no, I'm good. But once you get a little taste of that, I just tell people, do something a little bit outside your comfort zone every day. It could be like the smallest thing, and then it adds up. It doesn't have to be this big, like, I mean, some people do things that way. I've done things that way, but if for the people that are hesitant, just do something little every day that
Yeah,
brings you joy, or just that makes you feel more stable. I also think that a lot of people are stretched too thin, you know. People are doing too much, and I think in our society too, we're taught to do, and that's a lot of that masculine energy. But part of it is balancing, also embracing your feminine energy, which is something I'm also working on, learning to rest and play and be receptive. It doesn't always have to be I'm doing this, like I'm not worthy unless I'm being productive. That's something that's a program that I'm trying to overdo. Like, for instance, this weekend I'm off. You know, I'm working a normal job while I'm growing my business and passions and stuff too. And I almost felt bad yesterday. I took a day just to rest, and I felt weird. I was like, oh my gosh, why am I not doing something? You know, oh, I should be editing a video. I should be doing this. Even I should be meditating. And you know, it's all about sometimes just being with yourself and just following your little things, hints of joy, or the little sparks of light. You know. But your environment is a big thing too. You know, there are some people, you know, someone that was an addict before, some people aren't surrounded by the right people, whether it's your relationship, your friends, or sometimes your environment isn't inspiring. So what do you think about people who like maybe have all these dreams and maybe are trying to heal, but maybe they're feeling bogged down by the people they're surrounding themselves with, or they're just not in the best environment for healing and growing? I mean, I'm all about being an alchemist, like kind of transmuting all that, but some people really struggle with that. What do you think about people that have that issue?
I see it every day,
Yeah.
every single day. And my first thing is, and here, this is the little Tony Robbins, right? My husband trained with him, so
Oh
I've got
wow,
some of that
cool.
in there. But it's your 5 people. If you are, if you are feeling like it's your environment and or the people who you're surrounded by that are holding you back, then you've got the wrong 5 people.
Yep.
And it's really hard sometimes for people to leave those that they know, because it is uncertain, and one of our main needs as a human is to have certainty.
Yep.
And especially our family, that is what's holding us back, or that we're trying to escape from by using or by drinking, or by whatever it is, pornography, whatever that may be. It's If you can just take one small step in finding someone who is doing what you want to do. Now, I'm not talking about the millionaire like Tony Robbins, who's already been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, and on his third, fourth trip around the sun. I'm talking about somebody who's doing what you want to do, who might be newer, who's just breaking the threshold, but you see them thriving, and they've got that desire to be better, right? If you can find one person like that, that person is going to also have a person, and then that person is going to have a person, and then before you know it, you've got a whole new group of people who are all moving in the same direction. And you're not necessarily leaving those old people behind, but it happens in such a natural way because it's literally science, that they're still there. You still love them, but they're not the center of your focus anymore.
Yeah.
All of us focus is over here with the people who are reaching for their goals and striving and building, and you're all co-creating and collaborating together and doing things to get you to where you want to be. It literally just takes that one moment of finding that person who's just a little bit ahead of you in the game, but who has their head on their shoulders, right? Because if they're not doing the work, if you're doing the work and then the person you follow is not doing the work, right? And we say that thinking everybody knows what that means, but making the changes necessary in their life to level up, right? If that person's not and they're stuck, then guess what's going to happen? You might move a little bit, but you're going to be stuck again.
Yep.
So it's got to be just a consistent, hey, I'm looking for somebody who's doing good, who's doing what I want to do, and I want to learn from them. And that can be a coach or a mentor. It can be a friend. That's one of the things that going to these events and these retreats have done for me, and even being in the online space. I met you in Full-Time Purpose.
I was just about to bring that up, and I had just gotten out of a rehab a little bit long, before that, so I just did a lot of healing work, but I was integrating into the world after overcoming all that, doing a lot of healing and shadow work and stuff, and getting my brain back to normal. So then I joined that group. I always knew I had aspiration to do something like content creation or something, or just kind of to channel my energy I had, and that, and then we all met, and look, we're still friends. I was almost 2 years ago now, or maybe more than that. And I do collabs with you guys. I have a podcast with some of the people in that group, and we're still connected. We still do our own thing, but we always come back to chat somehow. Or I think it's really cool how we're all connected like that, and how we all have the similar purpose, and that really helped inspire me, because I was like, you know what? Even though I'm still working a matrix shop and stuff, I was like, I'm at least taking steps to get out of that and work. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do sometimes, but having that support group and even talking to you, some of the other people, we're all doing different things and kind of working through the same things. And it's very inspiring to have people like that. If I didn't have people like that, I don't know, because in my current environment, where I'm at usually, it seems like us light workers, or whatever word you want to use, we're put in places that are a little bit sometimes darker, or where there's a lot of people that aren't doing what we're doing. You can feel like you're on an island by yourself. Sometimes you're talking to your friends, about when I was talking about content creation stuff, when I first started, they're used to me being like a party girl, like, what, content creation? I'm sure, I'm not saying they were all rude, but, you know, some of the people I had to let go of because they weren't really like supporting what I was doing. Or once I started to see that I was starting to, you know, grow more, making them feel kind of uncomfortable because like they're not doing something I was doing something trying to help people and, you know, trying to grow and stuff. And it can make certain people feel uncomfortable. So I think it's just like staying on your path